What's up, YouTube? It's S.R.P, Sports, Religion, Politics. I just want to talk about something, a few things. Once again, I always forget my seatbelt. Hold on. But yeah, so I just want to talk about a few things politically, and what I see and what I notice. And let's start with Joe Biden. He made a comment because in the Constitution it says, you know, if we have the right to bear arms, and we also have the right to stand up against a tyrannical government and possibly overtake a tyrannical government. So Biden says, come on, man. You know how he talks? Pretty much, you really think you can take us? You know, the military, we have nukes. Pretty much saying he's going to, if that ever was the case, that they would nuke their own country. Sometimes this guy says the most outrageous, stupidest things I've ever heard, right? For one, you're not going to nuke your own country. And good luck telling the military to nuke their own country, whatever city or state it is. It's just not going to happen. Because guess what? People have family that live in those states. Okay? Every member of the military might have a family that lives in those states. So what do you think? You're just going to nuke somebody's whole entire family? Oh, tell your family to move out of the state. We're going to nuke it. Like, no. Then everyone would be leaving the state. Either way, it's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like if Trump said that, you know, oh man, the news would have jumped all over him for saying that. But with Biden, of course, we give him a pass, you know, because he's the old senile uncle at the barbecue, you know, like, oh, that's just Uncle Joe. You know, that's how he is. Foolish, right? Secondly, right? America is a Christian-founded country, nation, right? So, therefore, our laws reflect biblical Judeo-Christian values, right? Standards, right? Principles, right? So anything that contradicts what this country was founded on and what's in the Constitution, right? We have a right to speak out against, right? So when Martin Luther King pretty much spoke out against slavery and injustice, right? And for the civil rights, I mean. Notice, he didn't quote the Quran. He didn't quote the book of Buddha. He didn't quote any other book. He quoted the Word of God, right? The God of Israel, right? Because he knew that that God, right, was the highest authority, right? The highest form of legislation that comes from God. So he quoted the highest authority, and guess what? It produced results, right? You have equality happening. Black people were able to do things that we never were able to do 40, 50 years ago, right? 60 years ago, right? And guess what God Martin Luther King used to invoke a change, right? That's right, the God of Israel, right? The Judeo-Christian God. So God's standards, that's why when people say, oh, separation of church and state, and no, you don't get to come, look, we accept people from every country in the world, right? But you don't get to come from your country and change the foundational belief and religion of the country you came into. It does not work that way. It doesn't. I'm sorry, people. If you're offended by this, oh well, get over it. It's the truth, right? You don't get to change the country that you go to. You don't get to change their religion and their creeds and their constitution, and you don't get to do that, right? What is the saying? When in Rome, do as the Romans, right? Okay. If you don't like America and what it stands for, feel free to go to another country and see how nice they treat you if you try to change their laws and their constitution, right? Okay. Another thing I noticed, right? Every other, it could be the poorest country in the world, in this world, right? They could be either Haiti, right? Poor place, any country, Brazil, right? Ethiopia, right? Even the poor people in that country have respect for their nation and their nation's flag, right? Even the poor people, they might go out, they might speak out and go against the government if the government is corrupt, but they don't hate their country. Only in America do people speak out against their nation and hate their country. I've never seen anything like that. And we're the most privileged. So there lies a sense of entitlement, right? False entitlement. And it's just, it's like we're a bunch of spoiled brats who, if we don't get our way, we throw a fit. You know, it's very warped. The thinking is very warped, right? You don't go against law and order, okay? If you want police reform, you don't simply try to take away funding from the law enforcement. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because guess what? You still need someone to combat evil, violence, right? Crimes. So if you take away law enforcement and you cut the funding for law enforcement, guess who's going to suffer? The same people that the so-called Democrats are speaking as if they're trying to protect. The minorities, the blacks, the Hispanics. Those are the heavily crime. Those areas are heavily populated with crime, right? So why would you defund the police in those type of areas? Like and then they try to play these games like we don't remember, you know, like even people who don't like Republicans remember it was the Democrats saying defund the police. It was not the Republicans. So now they're trying to switch it and say that the Republicans are saying defund the police. Like, come on, son. Like, they must really, really think American citizens are retarded, stupid. They have to think something's wrong with us. Right? The issue, I'm going to tell you the biggest issue in this country. People need to stop looking at race. If you're American, you're American. Period. If you're thinking about race and you're only determining your loyalty based on race, it's like chasing after a ghost, right? It's pointless, because your own people can do you dirty worse than someone else can. Your own people. Most people that have issues have issues with their own kind. So wake up, America. Wake up, people. Wake up. You know, it's out of control. You want to separate church and state. You want to separate God. Our whole country is founded off of God. And you're trying to separate God from our country? Then what would... That was the only thing that separated us from all the other countries. You don't find it a coincidence, a miraculous coincidence, that the two nations that put God over everything are the most successful, right? So you have Israel, right? The United States, right? Which worship God, Yahweh, and Jesus Christ as his son, right? And those are the two most successful nations on the planet. You guys can't see, like, oh, well, That's odd. I wonder why they're the most successful nations. As far as military and even, economically. This country is starting to go down the tubes because we turned our back on God. That's why most of the issues that we're having is because we're deviating from the founding principles that made us great. So this whole topic that I'm discussing, it's loaded, but people have to really think. Like, this is like critical thinking. This is life and death. We gotta wake up, people. We gotta wake up. We gotta wake up. It's out of hand. You're gonna let Democrats who never had a clear vision for this country. Their whole campaign was based on anti-Trump. That's their whole campaign. They had no clear vision for the country. But people out of straight hate because they told you who to hate. They put it all over the media. Hate him, hate him, hate him, hate him. He did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. Hate him, hate him, hate him. And people ate it right up. Now look, CNN's viewership down 70%. Duh. NBC or whatever, they following suit, right? Duh. What did you think was gonna happen? Because you guys lied and you made your whole news network about anti-Trump. Now he's not in there, you don't have nobody to blame when Joe's doing bad. And you was afraid to speak out against Joe because you put him in there. Now you're being crushed by the weight of your dumb decision. And you want to stay quiet. You don't want to talk about it now. Right? Wake up, people. Right? It's not a Democrat thing. It's not a Republican thing. It's a evil versus good. Right? God created all mankind. Whether or not you believe that doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. What's true is going to be true regardless of what you believe. But I know God created everything, all living things. I know that. Right? And I know from experience. Right? Because guess what? If God didn't create everything, you wouldn't have order in the world. Right? It wouldn't be every 24 hours, another day, sun comes up, sun sets, and the moon comes out. There wouldn't be no order. Roaches and ants would be just as big as us, and we'd be getting killed and annihilated by insects because they grew bigger than us if there was no godly order in the planet. Snakes would be as big as us. They'd be eating us. Right? Really think about this stuff. Right? Really think about this stuff. How come out of every species on the planet, the only species that has the intelligence to govern the entire planet is the human race of all the other species? Right? What does that tell you? That we were created in the image and in the likeness of a higher power, the highest power. Because guess what? On Earth, mankind has the highest power and intellect. As God governs the entire universe, man governs the planet. Because we created in the image of God. So if God controls the whole entire universe, wouldn't it make sense that he made us to control the planet? Wake up, people. Wake up. God bless you, and let me know what you think. I'm really sick of the nonsense, shenanigans. Wake up.